Hello everyone, MarshW13 here with a fine dining review, and tonight we're in Napa, California at a Michelin-starred restaurant called La Tocque from renowned chef Ken Frank, and we can take a quick look at the wine list delivered via tablet upon seating. This is just a table of contents which is broken into categories by type and region, which as you can see is quite extensive. And based purely on the Cab Franc page here, you can get an impression of the prices on the right, ranging from around $200 to $500 a bottle. And here we have some Left Bank Bordeaux's highlighted by the 1961 Chateau Margaux selling for $5,500 a bottle. Now this is a tasting menu only restaurant, so as far as I know, a la carte ordering is not on offer. This is the standard tasting menu here, and on the back is the vegetarian tasting menu, which I've had on a previous visit and can recommend if you're a vegetarian or looking for something lighter, but it is quite expensive when considering the less pricey ingredients. As expected, they start you out with an amuse-bouche. This is a slice of heirloom melon with country ham, probably the least imaginative beginning bite I've had. Really nothing more than prosciutto and melone. The second amuse-bouche, on the other hand, a white gazpacho topped with breadcrumbs. This dish was much more elegant and complex with hints of anise, very fresh. The sourdough bread arrives warm, and while far from addictive and not that sour, it's toasted almost to the point of burning and just a bit softer on the inside. For our first pairing, this Pinot Gris is quite gold in color and extremely aromatic, but I didn't find it too distinctive. It has a bit of champagne-like notes on the nose, and it tastes somewhat like a cross between a Riesling and a Gewürztraminer. Not the most amazing wine to sip in a restaurant of this caliber, but it's all about the food pairing. The sea scallops crudo were just incredibly fresh, with a taste that truly evokes the sea in a good way, with an extremely pleasant, addictive sweetness. The meat has almost a fruit-like texture, as though you're consuming a seafood-based fruit cocktail, which honestly makes it perfect as a pairing with the Pinot Gris. The wine pairing with the next course is a Napa Chardonnay, which is quite neutrally oaked, preserving a bit of its freshness, but you still detect a lot of pure vanilla bean on the nose with hints of greenness. On the palate, however, it feels quite milky, but more in a textural way, probably not a result of malolactic fermentation. As it sits in the glass, it takes on more of a Sauvignon Blanc character. The Alaskan halibut was perfectly cooked and quite meaty texturally, but not extremely flavorful. As a Texan, it almost tastes like a Taco Cabana potato breakfast taco. The wine pairing is decent and manages to inject a bit of flavor into the mix. Chardonnay in general makes an interesting pairing with the acidic tomato broth, but the neutrality of the oak works well as a balancing mechanism of sorts. Our next course will be paired with this Italian Barbaresco made of 100% Piemontese Nebbiolo grapes. The wine is aged for 3 years. It's full-bodied, almost brownish in color, with notes of raspberry and leather on the nose. The leather really comes through in the palate as well. I found it fairly typical of Italian wines. It's slightly austere and very astringent. Even by themselves, the agnolotti are perfectly cooked with a generous helping of shaved Australian winter black truffles, hand-grated tableside by Ken Frank himself, really brings it into the sublime. The truffles are so thinly sliced and not nearly as strong as others I've known. The wine pairing is absolute perfection. I suppose the saying, when in Rome, applies here. The Italian wine really elevates the gnocchi. The beans are perfectly seasoned. This is simply the best dish by far with the finest wine pairing. And you're provided this finger towel hydrated with hot water tableside, which is a nice touch. The service here, by the way, is just magnificent. The waitstaff is incredibly efficient and discreet, clearly quite well trained, and some of the best I've encountered. Now this is a Caravina Napa Cab, and it's super duper new oaky, very vanilla forward bouquet with definite hints of tobacco. I found it to be big and bold, but not too obtrusive in the end. And for our last main course, we have the true star of the show, an A4 Wagyu cooked medium rare with a bordelaise sauce. As expected, the marbling on the Wagyu is awe-inspiring. The lobster crushed potatoes just melt on the tongue like decadent lobster bisque infused mash. I was skeptical of the wine pairing considering the extreme oakiness and the high fat content of the perfectly marbled meat, but in the end it worked. Every element of the dish sang in a harmonious chorus, even the charred pearl onion adding a beautifully acidic savory note. The meat is just so supple and silky, probably the best steak I've ever had. For dessert, this Hungarian Tocque seems to be all the rage these days. I was served the exact same wine in New York just a few months ago on a tasting menu, and it is, just as it was then, a slightly less peachy version of a Sauterne, but just as syrupy and honey sweet, really magnificent if you haven't tried it. And now for the sweet stuff. This peach cream puff has just the right balance of richness. The accompanying ice cream has such an amazing semi-savory taste and may be simply the best ice cream I've ever had. With the textural contrast of the crumble and the crispiness of the pastry, I must say this is one of the most complete desserts I've had in quite some time. I've always found that a cappuccino is the best way to end a fine dining meal, and this one did not disappoint. Oftentimes restaurant espresso can be weak and flabby, but this was deeply, richly roasted, and the biscotti on the side was above average as well. For our mignardis, we have textures of chocolate with cardamom and chipotle spice varieties. Overall, very nice. And you even receive a small parting gift filled with additional mignardis and a micro pastry, which is quite welcome and I'm sure serves as many a Napa Valley tourist midnight snack. So what's the verdict for La Tocque? Well, like everything else in Napa Valley and in California in general, it's certainly not cheap, but overall it's an amazing value next to other less sophisticated options in the area. The location in the heart of downtown Napa is conveniently central, and although there may have been a couple of imperfect wine pairings and a substandard amuse-bouche, when I leave a restaurant having eaten the best steak of my life and the greatest dessert I've had in years with mostly thoughtfully paired wines, it's well worth it, and ultimately an establishment I'd definitely patronize in the future, particularly with chef-owner Ken Frank at the helm grading truffles tableside. Any Napa trip should be filled with special experiences, and dinner at La Tocque is the ideal exclamation point on a special day spent sightseeing and tasting in the valley. So, in other words, I highly recommend it, and I hope you can visit sometime. Until then, may your culinary experiences be adventurous and awe-inspiring. Stay safe. Marsh W13 out.